Guys, there was a time when if you bought a boxing glove, it came in black or black. And like over time, then you could even get a white pair. It was black or white though. And I remember going into practice, Team Quest days, and Robert Follis, rest his soul, but he was the head coach. And Robert Follis had a pair of red Hayabusa gloves. So Randy Couture was the champion of the world at the time. And Robert was trying to push and train Randy. So we had a deal because he had the most sought after gloves. He had the only unique, cool pair of gloves in the entire room. And Robert had a deal that if you could take Randy down, he would give you his gloves. And Robert kept those gloves for a meaningful period of time. And Randy was not only the best in the world, but he was the heavyweight champion. So we used to come after him, trying to get him down. And I don't know if Randy ever knew why we were coming so hard, but we had a deal that you got the gloves. So one day, Chris Lieben got Randy down. So Chris is now wearing the only cool gloves in the room, but then Chris extended this deal to the next guy. Anybody that takes me down gets the gloves. And I must say, with all due respect to the crippler Chris Lieben, he did not hold on to these things as long as Randy did. But here I am all these years later, and I must tell you, they're selling these now at HayabusaFight.com. You get free shipping, 90-day money-back guarantee. That isn't the point. The point is, if I would have known about HayabusaFight.com back then, do you know how many days of training? Do you know how many rounds of sparring with the heavyweight champion of the world I wouldn't have had to have done? Guys, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little Amanda Nunes. And you know what? I don't have a whole lot to say. I don't have a whole lot to say because I didn't learn a whole lot of anything tonight. I knew tonight going into this, same as you did, she's the best in the world. Oh, and by the way, she's very dominant. But look, I have to talk about the dominance, okay? Because you do have to ask yourself as a human being, right? The golden rule, put yourself in somebody else's shoes. What would you do? How would you want to be treated if you were in their shoes? Okay, golden rule of life. Guys, if you're the champion of the world, if you've topped out in all the money you can make and all the recognition that you can get, what do? And we just saw this with John Jones. John Jones was so wildly successful, he walked away from a world championship. And I don't know if any of us could relate to that. I worked my whole life to be the world champion for one night. I never got it. So I just couldn't imagine winning so many championships that I just gave one back. I just couldn't imagine doing it. Wild success, right? So you look at Amanda, who nobody can touch her, so she changed divisions just so somebody could beat her. They still couldn't beat her. Oh, by the way, down a weight class of which she can't make, but she's fought the girl there twice who's the current king in Valentina, and Amanda's beaten her twice. I mean, not for nothing. It's like this wild dominance. But I'm talking about the gap. If Amanda Nunes stopped right now, okay, I guess let me ask you the question like this. If you were the best in the world and you topped out at money and you topped out at praise and you've done it many times over, you could stop going to the gym each day, particularly twice a day, particularly up and running at 4:30 and 5:30 in the morning when you have a family at home and you have a beautiful house. Just by example, you could stop. You could show up on fight night and you can still win. They'd be closer, they'd be harder, but you would still get all the praise, you would get the accolade, and you would get the same paycheck. That's an option. A much easier life. Little harder matches, 2-3 times a year. Or you can keep busting your ass and extending the gap. That's what she's doing, and that's what she deserves credited for. Because that's stunning. That's just not the way it works. It's just not the way it works. I've coached some very good wrestlers. I'm very hesitant to list them in any kind of order. But I will with one, because the rest of the guys I coached would agree that the most successful wrestler that ever came through All Phase is named RJ Pena. And RJ won everything that you could possibly win. And here in high school, he entered the state tournament 4 times. He won the damn thing 4 times. But RJ used to get up before school. He would lift weights and he would run in the dark and in the rain of Oregon. He would come inside and his mother would make him like this healthy breakfast, including like some kind of a smoothie with a certain amount of protein. And he did all these things. After school, he would train at the high school. In the evenings, he would come into All Face. He put in hours upon hours, but nobody could touch him. His closest match was a stoppage. He'd either pin or tech the guy. Nobody could touch him. At the end of practice, and we had a tough room. We had Division I guys. We had 11 state champions in that room at one time. Cranford was the junior national champion. This is a nasty room. At the end of practice, RJ's running sprints until he vomits. I was his coach. It's my job to push him. I finally grabbed him one day. I said, man, what are you doing this for? Nobody can beat you as it is. And RJ told me the reason that being a one-time, two-time, three-time state champion is an absolute lock for a senior. The reason that he trained so damn hard and to the point of exhaustion was just in case on the day of the championship, he was sick or he was hurt. If he just happened to break his arm, but the championship is there and he's going to be at a deficit, he wants to make sure that the gap is so big between him and everybody else that it could close, but he's still going to win. Now, I'm changing those words slightly because he said this to me roughly 14 years ago, but I am damn close to verbatim. And I remember where we were. And he looked up to me. I never questioned him again. That was one of my own experiences, but I'm seeing with Amanda Nunes, I'm seeing a drive and I'm seeing a distance between herself and the competition that is already a mile wide. And I don't know what it is that's making her grow that gap. I don't know why she wants to be done in 2 minutes when if she took life a lot easier, she could just go ahead and be done in 3. Or if she sat around and watched soap operas and really enjoyed her life, she could be done in 4.5. I don't know. But I have a feeling it's something along the lines of what RJ Pena told me. That I don't get a pick when the championship day is, but I sure as hell expect to win it. I don't control when I feel good, and I can't stop it if I twist my knee. But I'm going to meet those dates that I've agreed to. I'm going to win that tournament. It's very inspiring, and I don't want you to miss what's happening. There is a female athlete named Simone Biles. If you don't know who she is, and you likely don't, do yourself a favor and go look her up. But she is to women's gymnastics what Dominic Moceanu was to women's gymnastics, what Mary Lou Retton was before Dominic Moceanu was, just by example. And she is the only athlete out there who is as dominant as Amanda Nunes. And you can have a very interesting conversation on who's more dominant. I have recency bias as to what Amanda just did. I'm leaning towards Amanda. But it's one of these things of what makes these absolute greats tick, and you can guess all you want. There's only a couple of them, and unless you can get in front of Simone and ask her, unless you could get in front of Dominic Moceanu and ask her, or unless you could get in front of Amanda Nunes and get a very sincere answer, we're never going to know, but golly, it's inspiring.